Welcome to Love and Hustle. We share unfiltered stories of marriage, entrepreneurship, and scaling to seven figures without losing sight of what matters most.
The raw, the real, the sacrifices, and the lessons learned the hard way.
This is Love and Hustle. Hey guys, and welcome back to Love and Hustle. I am Brittany, and I am here with Stephanie Garneau of Legacy Photography in Oxford, Mississippi. And you guys, this episode, first of all, I'm just gonna give us a little disclaimer. Stephanie and I are talkers. We are
Chatty, very chatty. Get
we
ready.
are very chatty. Sometimes we message each other and we're like, man, I've been talking to you for like 10 minutes in a voice memo. So,
Yeah, or the infamous, I need to re-record this, I'll be right back. And then
yes.
you record a whole one again, yes.
Yes. And Stephanie, so Stephanie, tell us a little bit about you first.
Well, I am a former labor and delivery nurse, similarly to Brittany with her NICU nurse background, turned newborn and family photographer. I have been a hobbyist since 2012. When I had my fourth child, I finally got my first DSLR. So I'm completely self-taught, and I actually established my Facebook page in 2014, but my husband has a myriad of chronic health issues, and so I did not actually launch my business until 2020. A mere 3 weeks before COVID. So not the best time, but I've officially made it 5 years.
Oh my gosh, I love
better
it.
than, most business owners. I am still here and so excited to be with you.
I am so excited. So, okay, so the reason why I asked Stephanie to be on this episode, especially this time of year, everybody is getting ready for the new year. People are getting this opportunity to reflect on what's worked, what hasn't worked, what am I going to do differently next year, and really start to think about how they're going to invest in their business in 2026. And what I love about you and what I know about you is that you have invested in your business and your education in you're a serial learner. You never stop. You're always wanting to grow. I think you and I really align in this desire to constantly improving. We're not ever content, right? We're always we can do better. We can do better. We can grow more.
Well,
And
just
so,
the of learning as well. It's not just we can be better. I mean, I am a recovering perfectionist. It is
same.
how we truly enjoy learning, and I think that's invaluable.
Yeah. And so bringing your expertise. And then the other thing is that Stephanie is my co-coach for Leveraging to Luxury and my group coaching mastermind. And so Stephanie has gotten to not only be on the student side, but also to be in the mentor and coaching side. And so you just have this really unique perspective on both sides of really being able to not only see how do you make the most as the student, but also from the perspective of a coach and how can you prepare yourself, knowing our students in different aspects of what we see when we're coaching, and kind of helping people prepare for next year and taking that wisdom and insight and just sharing it from both sides.
Yes.
So I I'm so pumped for this episode. Everybody just buckle up. It's gonna be so good because me and Stephanie we get in a groove and it's a good time. So, okay. So one of the first things I really want to do when we jumping in is I want to talk to the listeners and really sort of define different types of education.
Absolutely.
One of the things that at Focus and Flourish, the conference that I hosted here in Tampa that you got to come to, which was so amazing. One of the things that was, really tricky was that, from having worked with so many different people through LTL, it's I remember, I hosted a retreat at one point for some of my alumni. And some people said, I really can't make the investment to come to a retreat if there isn't an education component. And or somebody said, I can't make that investment if I'm just going for some styled shoots. And so it was for me, it was okay, how can we make the best of all of these worlds? of having like education with a styled shoot, having classes with workshops, right? And how can you have like all of these layers where it really feels fruitful for whatever aspect you really need? And so, but one of the things I think in that is that a lot of people don't understand the difference between a coaching program and a course, the
Absolutely.
difference between a workshop and a styled shoot. And so, really helping the audience to fully understand how things differ. So, let's first like talk. I think like at the most like simplest, which would be a course. So, and I also think too, like this is obviously our perspective, and some people may have like slight variations to it, and that's totally fine. But we're sharing more of like the experience of just having taken so many courses and masterminds and group coaching ourselves. And so, okay, so share with me a little bit about like what you feel a course is.
I think of a course immediately as like on demand and evergreen. So you purchase it, it lives forever in some platform like Kajabi, wherever it might be. It could be, a lot of times it's lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like
Yep,
what
lifetime access. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, from coaching. And then it's completely your responsibility to find the time to do it yourself, which
Yeah.
oftentimes you're just, if you're a serial learner like me, you may have a gazillion courses that you've purchased and never finished, or only accessed part of them, um, which you're just not getting the full benefit of that accountability, and that intentionality that comes with coaching.
Yeah. And I think sometimes for me as a coach and you as my co-coach, one of the things I get frustrated with is how people will take a course and call it coaching because they put office hours in it.
Exactly.
And office hours where you answer questions um, is really to me a course with office hours with some supplemental office hours.
Exactly.
And usually
Exactly.
those office hours, like they run a launch, they enroll, 100 people, and part of like the benefit is getting to show up on these calls, and it helps you to take action, right? But there isn't this like set, like I'm gonna coach you. I'm going to look at you and your business and what you're working on and help you adapt this course to your business. But
Exactly.
I'm just going to answer questions, and it's your responsibility to do the work and show up and ask me them.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's no personalization, there's no real accountability, there's no challenge of what's really holding you back, which a lot of times is mindset, or the fact that you don't know your numbers, you don't really know where you are,
Yeah.
you don't know where you're going. And so no Q&A is going to solve those pain points for you as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur.
And like, I almost feel like even the term like hot seats are really helpful, but I have done hot seats. I've been in many masterminds. Every mastermind has had hot seats. And I have sat in hot seats where I'm like, this is the biggest waste of time because nobody is calling people out.
Right.
Like the point of a hot seat is that you sit there and you come to the table and you're like, I remember I was the most effective one I was in. It was 15 minutes, and you had 3 minutes to explain yourself, ask your question, okay? Then there was 2 minutes of clarifying questions. And then for 10 minutes, your job was to shut up and listen.
Right.
And so, and like what I loved is that we did this particular mastermind that I was in had several retreats. And so you got to start to see people's tendencies. You got to see that like, hey, this particular person, I remember there was somebody who anytime things got really hard, she started to get scrappy. And she started to kind of like grasp at things. And it was completely depleting her. She wasn't able, and somebody was like, I think that you get scrappy when stuff gets hard. And she wasn't allowed to say anything. She wasn't allowed to like defend herself. She wasn't allowed to like, and it was like, we're here to give you tough love. And so
Exactly.
I think, And that's where a mastermind comes in.
That's correct.
Is a mastermind is not just you have this coach, but you have the collectiveness of everyone in the room who's also bringing you, coming along the journey with you and supporting you and giving you feedback. And that's what a mastermind is. I actually want to quickly just pull up what is the definition of a mastermind.
I just think too, as a segue to that, like when you think about your closest friends or your best friends or your most valuable friends, they're the friends that will tell you the truth, right? Not what you want to hear, but the truth. They want to see you grow. And it's no different when you're in a coaching program. You don't need a coach that's just going to agree with you. You need a coach that's going to pick you up, that's going to challenge you and really tell you the truth about where you're struggling. And I mean, we do this with each other, right? I mean, we do. And that is the mark.
You actually, okay, full transparency. I'm going to tell you guys this right now. I'm dealing with a client who just has her head in the clouds. And I came to you and I was like, Stephanie, part of me just wants to go this route because I don't want to deal with the headache of having to go to her and figure out X, Y, and Z and ask her all these questions to make this work. And it's just so frustrating because clearly this is not important to her. And you were like, no, Brittany, no, you're going to make her do this. And then you're going to charge her a fee. You're going to charge her a fee, which we had already decided I was charging the fee anyways. But I was trying to decide if I cared enough about this very, in my mind, minuscule amount of money. And you're like, Brittany, but that's not your policy. That's not your policy, Brittany. So we call each other out. Yeah. So, okay. So here is the definition of a mastermind. It is a small collaborative group where individuals will with shared goals meet regularly to leverage collaborative wisdom, provide peer support and accountability, share knowledge to accelerate personal and professional growth to achieve specific objectives faster.
I love that.
Yes,
exactly. Is that ChatGPT?
No, this was well, it's from AI, but I typed it into Google.
That's
okay.
Perfect.
It combines elements of brainstorming, self-education, peer mentorship, fostering a confidential environment for problem solving, strategic planning, and gaining new perspectives.
Yeah.
So this is the part where I I think masterminds are so powerful, and why a lot of times, even when people will say, hey, but I really just want to one-on-one mentor with you. And I'm like, I know hands down people will have more success in the mastermind, the group coaching program, than they will with me one-on-one.
Absolutely.
Because
it's the community. It's the collective community. You are a genius business-wise. I mean, you're amazing, but it is that synergy that comes with all being in the same group together, all doing the same thing, all having to figure it out, all relying on each other at the same time together. There is this sense of just, I mean, it's incredible. The energy, the atmosphere, you're all in the trenches together, and there's nothing like it.
All right, here we go. So I will never forget, in one of the masterminds, there was a particular person who I had told her specifically what I thought her biggest struggle was. And I had said it to her, and I had said it to her. And, over the course of the entirety of the program. And I remember we got to the end of it, and I kind of stopped. I just sort of stopped because it was like I was beating a dead horse at this point, right? And I started to feel like what I was saying, how I was saying it, it just didn't hold the weight to be important for her to take action on it. And I remember we got to the hot seats, and she spits out her problem, and then everybody starts giving her feedback. And I swear to you, every single person was saying what I had said the entire 10 weeks of that program. And I just sat there and I was like, and what was awesome was she took the feedback. And it's like, it goes to show you that your coach may see something and give you advice, but there is nothing like getting advice from the person who's literally in the same freaking trench with you.
Exactly. It's like they talked about this today. I'm at the Goldman Sachs 10K SB Summit in DC right now.
Oh my
And it
gosh,
was
it's
like
amazing.
when you get advice from your parents that have told you the same thing your whole life, but then all of a sudden your friend tells you, and then you're like, oh, I guess I should listen now. It's the same
Yep.
exact concept.
Yep. Yeah. And so, I think that there's just so much power in that. And so with courses versus there's also coach courses that have like limited runs of, access to the coach. So I would call those like glorified courses where they're kind of like a course with an add-on option, right? Then you have like group coaching masterminds where you're actually getting coaching that's being done in a group setting, but then you're being put into specific scenarios where all of these things that foster, the brainstorming, the feedback, the accountability, the collective wisdom, the peer support, that is a mastermind.
Absolutely. Because you're doing it in real time. So I've been through so many programs and honestly been blessed to be like mentored and coached by some amazing educators. And I do not take that lightly because it's the old photographer story, like every like sales page. Oh, learn from me because I made so many mistakes, XYZ, and you don't want to make the same mistakes. So that's like their pitch, right?
Mhm.
But it's been the opposite for me, and I'm super grateful. And so I do feel like I can speak to this because my very first mentorship or evergreen education was just that. But then I had a Voxer like mentorship on the side, and it was extremely valuable. I was 3 months into my business. It changed the entire trajectory of my business. I was just going to like do this as a side hustle and give digital images. And I literally converted my entire brand to IPS, and the rest is history. I then found LTL. Um, but the difference is that I still had to do the work on my own. I could
Mhm.
ask questions to the mentor, but I had to do work on my own. There is a completely different atmosphere when you are doing the work side by side in real time together with in community with a coach. That is to me what differentiates a mastermind from just an evergreen model that you can purchase online and do at your leisure that you
Yeah.
often don't end up doing at all.
Yeah. And so I think one thing, so I have to tell you, I had somebody message me and she's like, this is a couple months ago, and I really hope she takes LTL and I really hope she listens to this because she's like, I invested in this and it was 10,000. And she's like, and I invested in this and it was 15,000. And she's like, I've done absolutely nothing with it. It's gone nowhere for me. It's been such a waste of money. And I didn't look at her. I was just on Instagram DMs and I was like, honestly, I was like, I don't look at that as a waste. I look at that as paying $25,000 to learn that that's not your learning style.
Yes.
It's a very expensive way to figure that out. But what you now know is that you're not going to go watch pre-recorded classes and you're not going to show up on office hours that are at whatever time, and so, you know, and I said to her, I was like, even one of them was a lot more like one-on-one, but there was a big personality conflict, and I was like, well, now like the specific questions that you need to ask around that one-on-one aspect to know that they're going to be a good fit. I will tell you, I had a coach that personality-wise, I did not vibe with at all, but I knew that she was a badass. I knew that she had incredible advice. And there were some times where I was like, I politely disagree, but I shut up
Right.
because I knew that arguing with her was not a good use of my time and that when I was sitting in that seat, I needed to ask the questions to get to the answers of how I was going to grow my business, not argue with her.
Right. Exactly.
And that's like one thing I think too is like knowing that you might hear things that are really hard and that rub you the wrong way and maybe irritate you a little bit, but it's all in efforts to grow, right? And you're gonna get uncomfortable and it might frustrate you a little bit. But I think one of the biggest things that I have learned from the tens and thousands of dollars that I've invested in education is knowing the right questions to ask. Because when you realize that somebody that is sitting in front of you is so smart and so like the way their brain thinks is so complex, and you are trying to learn how to create that or take pieces of that to grow yourself, don't ask stupid questions.
Right.
Don't ask a question of like, where can I find this? Don't ask that. Go ask their assistant, go ask somebody else that's in the program, because they're going to get so annoyed with you, you know? And so knowing that like when it's your hot seat time and when you have your one-on-one, that like your job as the person who's taking that program is to figure out not the 10 questions that you want to ask, but the two most important questions that are going to move the needle in your business the fastest. The other 8, figure them out, because you might only get, some of these masterminds, you don't even get contact with the person who's leading it. Or if you do, it's very limited. You get to ask maybe one question. And this is, of course, getting into some of the really top tier masterminds that I've looked into. So, okay. So now that we've kind of like defined a little bit of like what are, okay, wait, let's actually talk a little bit more on like in person, because those were all more like virtual online type things. Let's talk about like in person. I would say like the most simple of things being a styled shoot. Would you like, right? Like starting with a styled shoot, which is to me is show up, bring your camera. We're going to coordinate the location and the models. Maybe there's food, maybe there's not food. But your job is
Right.
is to get pretty photos. It's a
Exactly.
styled shoot. Or like a shootout. Some people call them shootouts.
Right.
And then what were you gonna say?
Well, which really, at the end of the day, what is the point of pretty photos if you don't understand the thought process behind the execution of that image? Like, is the point just to have pretty photos? Like, what do you, and I
Yeah,
think that's important, like, for anything you're going to invest in, is like, what are you actually walking away with in your toolbox? Like, what are you actually learning? How is this benefiting you as a photographer, a creative? You need to
yeah.
think about those things.
And so for me, like I do think in the wedding space, I think it's a little different because obviously styled shoots are really important for portfolio building, especially if you're trying to, let's say you predominantly shoot country club weddings and you're really trying to break into this space of outdoor weddings or something. I don't know. And like you don't really have that in your portfolio. So like you're going to that for the perspective of portfolio building, right? And there's definitely people who are going to a styled shoot from the perspective of like Sarah and I were just talking. This is gonna sound so like funny, but I really hope somebody gets like a good giggle out of this. But like our clients we have like a quote like type of client. They're, and I was like rattling off like specific things that I want to photograph. Like
Yes.
just like different diversities, different like pairings of couples. Like I'm just like, we're craving just something that's just like different for us. Like we're like, we want a dad with long hair. Like
Oh,
we
yeah.
want
My whole
like
house had a man bun today. A man bun.
yes, like can we get a man bun in here? So, which is like, and I don't mean to like, obviously I love and adore my clients, but sometimes
Right.
like as a creative, you just want to step out of the box. And this is where a styled shoot really comes into play, especially if you get to know what the models are going to look like in advance, let you play. Now then there's like the perspective. So I'll add one more thing is I think there comes a point in your in your career where you realize that you don't need another styled shoot.
Right.
Like, you could just go make it yourself. Like, I could easily go do a model call. I could give very specifics. I don't need to go pay. Obviously, if I don't want to go through the hassle of setting it all up and creating the productions and finding the models and doing all the things, absolutely go do it. But also, too, at the same time, like knowing that like I would rather just do a model call. I could easily, I've built it a big enough following. I could find what I'm looking for and create that, right? So, but then there's the perspective of like a workshop where you're going, and I've heard so many mixed reviews on workshops. And some of these workshops are like thousands
Yes.
of dollars. Like it makes me like I literally have seen a few pop up and I've gasped. I'm like, does that include lodging? And it doesn't. I'm like, does that include meals? And it doesn't. And I'm like, okay, so what's the outline? Like, what are we covering? Like, what are we covering hour by hour in this 2 day posing workshop? Like, and so really starting to like ask yourself, like, okay, what am I actually walking away with? Am I walking away with pretty photos? Am I walking away being inspired? Or am I walking away with like actual like implementation? How am I going to take this and like implement it into my own business? And one of the things that I think is a drawback to in general is if you are portfolio building, know the limitations to which those images are going to be.
Well, that's kind of
Meaning,
what I was talking about. Exactly.
meaning if you go shoot a styled shoot in a studio that you don't own and you can't rent,
That's right.
on backdrops that you can't purchase or
Right.
that you are not, or furniture that you don't have, there are limitations as to how you can use those. By all means, go be inspired, but
Right.
realize that when people say, oh, these are portfolio images, your portfolio images are really important to understand that if a client asks for that, you're
Exactly.
going to need to be able to say, I don't, I don't offer that.
I
One
think it
second.
goes so much deeper than that though, and like from a it's even from a technical perspective. Like you can go and shoot all the pretty pictures you want, but if you don't understand the recipe and you don't understand the artistry behind those images, it's meaningless when, like you said, like how it translates back to your own business. If you don't understand that the background, the location, the lighting, all of that is so important to the final like artistry that you're producing for your clients, and you can't replicate that because you don't even understand it because you're just at some random styled shoot. What is the point? And I think that's where something like Focus and Flourish is so valuable, because yes, you're getting beautiful images, but you're being walked through the process of how to create those, what you're looking for. And so it takes it beyond just portfolio building to something more meaningful.
Yeah. And I will say, like, also having the ability to decipher the difference between a 2 day workshop and a 1 hour workshop.
Right.
How much you're going to learn in 1 hour versus how much you're going to learn in 2 days is going to be very different. So, also, like, having grounded expectations of,
Right.
like, what's actually possible for the educator to even cover in the amount of time that is there, right? And so while it might be like we called them watch, learn, and shoots. So while it is a watch, learn, and shoot, with somebody giving specific instruction on what they do and how they do it, there's only so much that they can teach you in 1 hour or 2 hours, whatever it is, right? Versus 2 days. So also just like having perspective. The other thing I feel to like say about um, workshops, and I've heard this repeatedly from so many people that just not like no common thread between the educator, but that people will say, I went to the workshop and I still don't understand how they achieve those photos.
Yeah.
Like it's it's kind of like the educator doesn't fully grasp how to break down their vision and their art. And so they can talk about it and they can like show you, but how to actually make it into learning. Like how do I teach it to you?
You've just defined the difference between an artist, right, and an educator. And they are two
Hmm.
very different things. And so, even when you're looking for coaching or education, you really need to be evaluating whether they are truly an educator or whether they're just saying that they are. And that's the piece. That's the piece that's so important, what you're talking about, the ability to break down and make and actually be able to teach what they do, their process.
Yeah. And something for me that like I talk about in LTL is finding the balance between being a business owner and an artist. And something that I've learned through my students is they're like, Brittany, you are like so methodical. You like go into your sessions with this like very set, like I don't just like la-di-da, like let's throw some lace over here and see what your hair looks like. And why don't you try to stand like this? I'm like, no, stand here, bend your leg, dad, you're here, mom, you're holding baby. Like, and I would just like, and you know what was so interesting about Focus and Flourish is I taught the sunset session under the tree that was focused on how to shoot for the frame and how to shoot for the gallery wall and being very intentional and like thinking about the design, not just thinking about, hey, let's take some pretty photos, but like, how is it actually going to translate into a really beautiful gallery? I've learned that through all the years now that I've designed and redesigned gallery walls and been like, man, I wish I would have shot that differently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or
So
instead of going into Photoshop and having to reconfigure the whole image to make it work for, a certain frame. Yes.
yeah, and there's so much intention that happens behind that. Like we as photographers that produce artwork consistently all the time understand the difference of having like for example, let's say I have headshots of four siblings and three of the four siblings I shot side lit and then
Exactly.
one kid I shot backlit.
Yeah.
That one kid's photo is going to stick out like a sore thumb in the gallery because, or at least if you try to do like a quad of them, they're going to feel completely
Different.
different than that one photo. So, so like being able to know how things translate, right? And that's something that makes us very uniquely positioned within the market is that we think about the finished product as we're actually shooting. And certainly like albums and things like that maybe don't have I think albums you can be a little bit more of a free spirit because that is the album is the fact that it is so many photos. Um, but for me, I know I have like a very like structured. Now, I say I have a very structured approach, but I also know that I can completely have a toddler deconstruct my entire structure and I'll be okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
Or I can have like I think probably I would rather have and this is like for any clients who are potentially listening. I hope they like take this little advice because every photographer is going to like nod their head right now. Like a toddler being like a toddler completely messing up my workflow, like refusing to be held, refusing to sit down, not, whatever it is, right? I can completely adapt. I can, or like refusing to just be in the photos at all for that current moment. I can deal with that all day. I can completely rebound from that and still produce the same quality of work.
Yeah.
But when I have a client that says, but could we just, can I just, could you create, and you keep interrupting me and asking me for something, I like you can guarantee that you're gonna leave my session and I'm actually gonna worry of whether or not I delivered what I produce
Right, because they
for
don't
that
have
gallery
access.
wall.
And that's the whole reason they are hiring you because you are the expert. And yeah, I mean it's amazing. I will have moms say to me, I know that there's no way you got anything because their kids are just
Yeah.
completely wild. And I'm like, listen, I have 5 kids. Trust me, I got
Yeah.
exactly what I needed. And then they see their gallery and they're like, are you a flippin' magician? Like, how in the world is this possible?
Yeah.
And that's because this is what we do. It
Yeah.
doesn't phase us. Just trust the
Yeah.
process.
I had a client recently who came in. I've done or no, I've done three full collective memberships with them now. And I've done some sessions in between those babies. And she's like, her husband said, I feel like this is the best session. And she's like, he's like, maybe it's because the kids are finally getting older, or maybe it's because we're in the studio and we haven't really done any in the studio in a while. And meanwhile, keep in mind, like, the youngest is like not even 2 yet. So I was like, I think like saying the kids are better is like, we're not there yet. We're like not out of the woods of that to like confidently say that. And and she's like, to be totally honest, I love this. I was like, can we write this in a Google review? She goes, I actually feel like it's because I'm just not a complete stress ball because I've done this now with Brittany so many times that I know in the chaos she's still gonna get it. And so I've kind of just like like just let out that sigh and got to enjoy it because she's just like Brittany always gets it, so it's fine.
Yeah.
It'll be
Well,
fine.
this is such a good segue into I've literally had clients that will, on a consultation call, tell me, I am looking for my family photographer. Like,
I
not
love when
for
people tell me
one,
that.
not for a one-time photographer. I want my kids to know your name. I want you to grow with our family. And that's like the whole beauty of documenting a family story, their legacy, um, is that you are a part of
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
And there is something to be said for that level of trust and relationship. And,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
I love that. Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of, I feel like for, the olden days, it was like you had your family doctor, your family jeweler, your family like car salesman, your family pharmacist, and it was like, oh, we always go to Dr. Tom, and it was like everybody saw Dr. Tom, and it was like Dr. Tom had seen every single generation, and like I feel like that's like really quickly faded away. That the importance of that, and I definitely think too, like obviously you'll go through times where maybe you want a different style and that photographer doesn't do it, but you still come back to for like your whatever, for your gallery wall, your like annual family portraits, the expansion of that to keep that consistency. And to be totally honest, I think sometimes um like just if there's listeners right now that are not photographers, but understanding that like part of your kids becoming better at their sessions is not just not doing mini sessions. Mini sessions are a great way to like not have a great session, because they're so stressful and they're so short and there's people, all the things, right? But to like do full sessions and then to start to do them consistently with the same person.
Yes.
Because I mean, I think about it in when I was a nurse, when I was a NICU nurse in the ICU, continuity of care is a
Absolutely.
real thing. And
Absolutely.
so, you know, nurses would be, you would have a primary nurse. Once they knew that a baby was going to be there for an extended amount of time, the family would choose a primary nurse. And what happens with that is that that nurse begins to become so aware of that patient that when there is the slightest change, they're gonna find it faster than a nurse that has never taken care of that patient
Of course.
before or only once or twice. And so that continuity of care is huge. And I think that that same principle translates over into your kids because tonight, the session I did, I was telling the parents, I was like, they are like so grown. They were so good this time. And I think it's like, because they know me, like they see me all the time now.
It's also trust,
Hmm.
not only continuity of care, that whole concept, but it's trust. I mean,
Yeah.
it's relationship. And I think in the like ever increasing world of technology and AI and like just so much like dehumanization that people want to be known. Like at our fundamental core, like we want to be known. And the way that you're known is through relationship. And so
Yes.
that's something that is I think that really sets our full service businesses apart.
Yeah. Well, we've gone down this like massive tangent. So, welcome to the Brittany and Stephanie show where we were like, wait, what did I call you about again? Hold on, I called you. What was that about?
Oh my gosh. So true.
Oh gosh. So, okay, so back to talking about, we were talking about like workshops versus styled shoots, and sort of just like having some expectations
Right.
of what you're going to get in those scenarios. So now that we've sort of defined that, let's sort of go down the path of talking about, as people who are listening to this podcast are gearing up for next year, how should they find, like, let's just talk about like like how we've found great educators ourselves, like what does that process look like, and like how to sort of sniff out the, I don't want to say that any education is bad, but to like find the education that's going to be the best fit for you.
Right.
Okay, so one of the awesome things is that I actually have a PDF that I wrote several years ago, after my experience in a mastermind, and I got to witness a lot of other people's experiences in that mastermind. And it really inspired me to create this document, and I'm just gonna like have it kind of pulled out as a reference because I feel like it's really helpful. So, and if you want to actually read that document yourself, we're going to link it in the show notes because it actually breaks everything that we're talking about down on an even like deeper level. Just like very specifics, and it also has red flags to look for and green flags, and we'll talk about some of those here, but if you really want like the whole guide, it'll be linked in the show notes. So okay, so first talk about um, let's talk about curriculum, because I think that there's a lot of, especially in the mastermind world, there are a lot of very there's a lot of programs that don't actually have like a set goal, like a collective goal. So like going back to that definition, like the of the mastermind, it's a small collaborative group where individuals with shared goals. So what is the goal of this? And I know this sounds like so like, this is like how to choose your educator one-on-one. Like, welcome. We're going to talk about goals. Like, you guys are like, great, I'm so glad I'm listening to this. But no, like, really, because I have been in a mastermind where I was under the impression that everyone that was coming into this mastermind was going to be starting a course and or creating some form of education. And then there were people that were on these calls that were like, I'm not planning to teach anything. And I was like, wait, did I sign up for the right mastermind? Like, aren't we all educators here? Like, oh, wait, you guys are just wedding photographers and you don't want it? Like, you don't want to court? Wait, so hold on. And so asking yourself, like, is there a common goal? Like,
Right.
is everybody on the same page? Because let me tell you, if there's a lot of educators that when somebody is willing to pay, they will take the money because it's there.
Yeah.
What were I saw you like put your hands up.
I know. Well, I just almost think it's like entrepreneurs get starstruck. It's like, oh,
Yes.
I just want to be in someone's proximity.
Hmm.
And people charge for that a lot of money, but there's
Yeah.
not really any, that's not a mastermind. That is, I don't know. I just think that it's not about just being in proximity to somebody that you think is amazing or that you want to learn from. You have to know the structure and the purpose of the program that you're signing up for, and you have to have something that you're moving toward collectively with other people, and then that you're going to get feedback on from your coach.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just kind of like, you're just paying to like, I mean, I know programs like this that are thousands of dollars where it's like, oh, come and sit with me for the weekend and let's just like kumbaya around the couch and you can ask me all your questions. That is not a mastermind, and
Yeah.
really, what are you leaving with? I mean,
Yeah.
you might leave with a few skills, but what do you really like? What is the return on your investment? Just like we have to look at the ROI in our businesses, we have to look at what it takes to acquire a client. What is the return on our investment? And that is so important to consider when you are looking at what sort of education you're going to invest in, because
Yeah.
otherwise it's just a waste of your time.
Yeah, this guy, that is one of the things to ask is, can the coach give you an actual return on investment based on data from their
Right.
actual students,
Exactly.
based on real results? Can they give you a number? Okay, and here's okay, so I feel like we could go down a little, like a whole nother little side tangent on that. Um, but there's a lot of testimony. So I've been looking at so Zach, sweet. Well, this is kind of like all these stories tied together. So Zach really loves to listen to some really big names in the education space. Alex Harmozy is one of them. They're all men, which I love. I love that he's at least, like expanding his mind, getting like listening to these very like, forward thinking individuals. But I am not starstruck. I don't. In fact, I got onto a discovery call with one of these teams. It was, somebody under the coach, under whatever. And I just honestly think that they expected me to be starstruck and like expect me to just pay. And it was like one of these things where I was like, that's great, but I need you to tell me from what I've shared with you about my business. I need you to tell me how this 3-day workshop is like, tell me so and so is speaking on this topic, and they're going to cover these three main areas that I believe is going to be helpful with X, Y, and Z that you've told me is a pain point in your business.
Yes. And
Like,
that is what sets you apart. I feel like you are so grounded. You are very humble. You realize, like, I'll never forget the conversation we had. And you're like, you were talking about somebody, I can't remember who. And you're like, I mean, just get over yourself. Like, get over yourself. And I was like, oh, I love Brittany.
these are conversations behind private doors.
I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, because truly, right, we all need to get over ourselves. Like, let's
Yeah.
just be real. We all
Yeah.
struggle. That's, but like, you truly are so down to earth. And I think that
Thank you.
is what makes you so impactful as a coach.
Well, I appreciate that. But yeah, I remember I was on this call and I feel like this coach, like it was a Zoom call, and Zach was like, hot damn, like I was really challenging this guy. And one of the things which so one of the things I really hope I can do in this podcast, we are gonna have 2 episodes because there's a lot to cover here. But one of the strategies of coaches, and this is sales. Actually, no, this is sales in general, is the person will ask you to identify what, like they have, they're going to ask you, you'll ask a question and they'll basically ask you a question to give them the answer to the question you just asked. So like, you'll say like, I really want to understand how like the components of like this piece of your program would, how it would support my business. And they'll reverse the question on you to basically have you give them enough information so that they can answer that question and position it from a place of value in your mind.
Right. It's like a politician.
Yeah, and you're like, so here's the thing, guys, okay? When you start, and I'm going to be very transparent here. Sometimes I think the reason why, like, I feel like such a small fish in a big pond of educators is because that type of strategy is so ethically wrong to me.
Yeah.
Like, I believe in, like, asking people what their problems are. And if I can help them, I will tell them I can. And if I can't, I will send them away. I do this even
Right.
with my clients. Like I'll ask them, like I'll say, like, how do you want to enjoy your photos? And if somebody is like, I don't want artwork, I don't want hair and makeup, I don't want wardrobe, I don't want albums, I don't want frames, and I'll be like, listen, I'm just like not the right photographer for you.
Right.
Like, I'm
Exactly.
not going to sit here and try to sell you something that you have very clearly stated you don't value. Because if anything, you're going to take a spot on my calendar that should have gone to somebody who valued it, right? That's the way I see
Right.
it. So, so I hope to share some insight into that. But, so I think that, the starstruck thing is definitely real. And it was funny because as I was on that call with Zach, I talked about this in my secret stories. Do you remember when I talked about this? This particular, so I had it on speakerphone, and so I was like muting it or whatever, and I muted the call, and I was telling Zach what was going to happen next. And I was like, I muted and I was like, and he's going to now ask us this. And then like, the conversation came on. And then boom, he did it. And then I like muted the conversation. And it's like, because I've taken these programs, I know exactly the funnel. I know the exact tactics that they put you through so that you literally get to the end of the call and you feel so desperate that they're the only person that can help you that you hand them your money.
Right.
That's how that is. And so, and they'll ask you, and I will say that I do think there are people who need a little bit, and I think we can attest to people you and I mutually know that sometimes just need that little bit of a tense grab on their shoulders, and it's like, you need to do this. And so sometimes certain people need to be broken down a bit to realize that the answer is in front of them. I'm not going to say that doesn't, that there's circumstances that needs to exist. Okay. But when you're like getting on a sales call with somebody who really doesn't know anything about you, it can seem rather invasive. And if it feels uncomfortable, it's a red flag. Like it shouldn't feel that way. I remember I took a mastermind, a program it was in 2018. Wait, is it 2017? I can't remember. Anyways, all that to say, I remember I got off the call and I was crying. And I needed to cry because I had really hit a wall in my business. And I knew that if I didn't make a change, I was going to be in a really bad place a year from that time. And so I kind of got that like shake hold, like, like you need to do this. But the part that was alarming that followed that was the pressure for me to say yes to her.
Right.
My vulnerability began to be preyed on.
Right.
And so being aware that people can use that to manipulate you. And so really being able to act, like, I hope that when we finish this, people can walk away with like when they're in that vulnerable state, they can ask themselves these very exact questions to know whether or not this is a good fit. There will be times that you are in that very vulnerable state and you may need that little bit of a like love, like you need to do this. But then being able to kind of step back and be like, okay, but is this the right fit for me? If you're a photographer with a service-driven heart looking to consistently deliver printed artwork to your clients, my group coaching mastermind, Leveraging to Luxury, is opening very soon. Whether you're just starting out with product sales or you're a seasoned expert in the sales room, whether you're in a small town or a big city or international, this is the proven strategy that has scaled hundreds of photographers to multi-six figures with products and services and not their time. This is the exact model that has now scaled my own business to 7 figures with a team. In this 10-week intense mastermind, you'll learn everything from how to run your numbers more strategically as a business, to mindset to the value-based pricing model that is scalable and truly designed for the benefit of the client. I'll teach you everything from consultation calls to the sales room process to how to guide your client in a very intentional way that only generates the best result for them, but also for you. If you can imagine, it's like riding shotgun in my own business while I am getting in the trench of your business. I take just a handful of students one time a year. So if you're serious about making changes in your business and 2026 is the year for you, applications open very soon. Join the waitlist. The link is in the show notes. So with that said, I want to shed light, because going back to the whole curriculum thing and these masterminds that lack a lot of structure, people are on different pages, there aren't common goals. These to me are like big red flags. And so making sure that there's a common goal that we are all working towards, right? There's a destination that we are all hoping to whether, it be that everybody is going to do X, Y, and Z in their business by the time they're done with that. And that might look different. You might have people who are much more advanced in that and some people who are more novice in that, but everybody at the end of this is going to achieve the same thing. Right. And then the other thing is deliverables, because, I think deliverables are something that are super important to the value of a program of like, what are the tools? What are the worksheets? What are the actual items that I can implement into my business? Not just like, hey, you're going to talk to me about like what you do and like how you do it, but how have you actually made this into a tool that I can use?
Yes. And are you willing to share that?
Yeah.
That is what sets, again, LTL apart from other, evergreen courses or coaching programs, is that you set your students up for success with things that literally are still working in your business now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And I think too, like, I will say things like, I remember somebody asked me to teach them something that was not covered in my program. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And, she was really irritated that I wasn't. And I was like, that has nothing to do with what we're learning. Like, right. It literally, because there's people who get so overwhelmed with how much they have to learn that, like, somebody coming in and, like, I'm trying to, like, think of an example. Like, imagine that you're spending this day and you're all, like, we're baking pastries and like it's this pastry class and we're doing cakes and we're doing croissants and we're doing danishes, whatever, right? And then someone's like, I need you to teach me how to make spaghetti. And you're like, this was the pastry class. And they're like, yeah, but I saw that you made spaghetti last week on your Instagram, so teach me how to make spaghetti.
Right.
And they're like, because then they start, like, in that circumstance, I was thinking about the other students and I was like, hell no, because I know that like little Missy over there who's about to like quit this program because she's so overwhelmed. If I throw in something that's not even in the curriculum, she's gonna be like, bye, Britt, I'm out. Like, yeah, so like making sure that like there are deliverables, and then also being like, from the perspective of just being a coach, like being reasonable of like knowing like these are the things that I should be getting, and understanding that there, in my opinion, is like I have developed something that has has proven results. And so it's really important for me to keep the focus and the flow of that. It's just like with our sessions. It's like when a client like is like, can you do a headshot for me in the middle of their like newborn session? And you're like, it's always like, you're like, no, yeah. Like, can I? Yes. Is this for what this is for? No. Like, it's the same circumstance. Okay. So, and I think too, I think it is totally okay to ask for a calendar. I recently looked into a program.
Goodness.
Ask for a calendar, and make sure that ask for a calendar and look at how the content's being structured, how the curriculum is flowing, how often classes are, what are the deliverables, how are you receiving those deliverables, how long do you have access to those? If the person updates those deliverables, do you get access to updates? What does that look like? Okay. Um, Another thing I want to touch on is applications. I think applications are so great. Because I quit a mastermind. Have you ever quit one? Have you ever just, like, I know you said there's been like a course maybe that you haven't fully implemented
Right.
or completed, but have you ever been in something where we're not quitters,
No.
you and I.
Mm-mm.
When I quit this, it was like a pretty big deal. And I heard that like after I quit, because people were stunned that I quit, like it fell apart. Like
Oh
it
my.
started to get other people in the room
Right.
questioning it. Um, and so, but I realized that the educator did not do a good job of like screening people. And I was really moving the needle in a direction of my business. And there were people who were questioning whether or not they wanted to even be a photographer at all.
Right.
And by all means, like being in a program where like we're here to help you find, your light and clarity and direction. Yeah, but that's not what this program was. And so I felt really drained. And I remember the coach actually came to me and asked me to like guest teach. And she also asked me to reach out to a few of the individuals and offer support for them and to help them find clarity. And I was like, lady, I don't have time for that. Like,
Oh my gosh,
no,
like without being paid, just
no. And like by all means, like I definitely think there's been times where, I think that's the beautiful thing about having you now, Stephanie, is you can be a bit of a buffer when like maybe something I've said just isn't clicking as well. Like you can be this person of like, look, I've been in Brittany's program and I know how this works, and like she's really trying to help you here, and like, can I help you process this in a different way? Can I help you troubleshoot how this would work for you? Um, but no, yeah, just like, hey, go help these people. So I definitely think there's times where suggesting that you lean on another peer is helpful, but to ask another peer to actually teach you is wild to me. So,
exactly. Yeah. Because essentially she's asking you to do her job.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, like, and I understood why, because like she wasn't getting through to people and she knew that I had already worked through that. But to take my time to do that was just, not something I had. So, anyways, but all that to say, there wasn't an application in this. If there was, it was very poor. I don't remember it. That's how insignificant the application was. And so the so is there an application? What are the questions being asked? The other question would be is like, is there an interview of some kind? Um, like what due diligence is happening?
Yeah. I will never forget when I was thinking about doing LTO. You know, I'm a serial learner, and not only that, I am super type A and do a lot of research, almost to a fault. And I remember talking to so many people that had done LTL, and I still had questions, and you got on a call with me and
Yeah,
literally spent time answering my questions, and that was so meaningful to me because
I love that.
you talk about coaching people with a service driven heart, but as a coach, it's not just in your photography business, it's in your coaching business that you truly first and foremost want to serve, and you want to make sure that the people that are in your program are like-minded and that you can really help them, and that is
Yeah.
invaluable. You're not just trying to take somebody's money.
Yeah, I will remember I actually was really interested in this mastermind. I had seen a few people come out of it that had been really successful, but I was really cautious because I had just gotten out of the mastermind where I just felt like she took anybody into it, and there was just a lot of disgruntled people who came out of that. So I was a little bit like hyper aware. And I was like, is there any way that I can get on a call with you? And she was like, I'm happy to answer any of your questions here via voice memo on
Yeah.
Instagram. And I was like, okay, well, if you're not gonna like talk to me, then you're not getting $15,000 of my money.
Yeah.
like, like if this is okay, if this is what it looks like to become your client,
Yes.
I can't imagine what it is once I've already given you my money.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And I almost like that's actually something that I even think like when I teach about consultation calls, like the people who really value what we do
Yep.
almost like expect that level of service. And I think that that's a perfect example. It's like I was like, okay, I think it was like 15 or 20,000. I think that mastermind now is like even more than that. I don't even know. It was at the time for me, it was a very significant and high. But I remember just being like, I just can't like it just didn't it's like it's almost like she didn't value me like
Right.
at all. And so for me the way I see it is like being a client, right, for a photography business and offering our clients to get on a call is a
It
service.
is. And I think so much of our training, our breakouts this week are on AI and how to use AI in your business, how to use it in your marketing, how to use it in your operations. I mean, we're being trained by like AI experts. And that level of service, the consultation call, a phone call, the humanity of truly caring enough to speak to your clients is going to automatically set our businesses apart. Hands
Hmm.
down, the more that we become automated, we thought automation was like already a thing with just email templates and CRMs and all the things, but with AI, we're going to completely differentiate ourselves just by the art of a phone call.
Hmm.
It,
Yeah.
and it's amazing, and it will set us apart in the service, and as a service-based business, hands down.
Yeah. And I guess like for me the way I see a consultation call, discovery call, interview, whatever it is, the way I see that is I almost look at it as like a pre-screener to how much somebody values something.
Mhm.
And so, like, two ways: how much the client values us and how much we value the client.
Right.
So, when you're going to invest in your education, you're going to invest in this coach and they're not even willing to talk to you. I mean, yes, there comes a point. Tony Robbins is not going to get on a phone with you guys. Sorry. Doesn't work that way. like, um, uh, so, I do think that there's degrees that is not going to happen, but somebody who's under them or under that person will, right? And so, I think that is a big red flag for me is that. Okay, so let's hit this last one and then we'll wrap it up for part one. So the next thing that kind of like leads into that is once you're in the program or is like what kind of contact do you have with the actual coach during the program and after the program? So, is it live teaching? Is it pre-recorded? Is it a Slack channel? Is it a Facebook group? Are you getting Voxer? Are you getting Marco Polo? Like, what are these things? Because they're very different.
Yes.
And then the next question that I would say is to ask, how is this formatted?
Yes.
Meaning, like, okay, so if I get to join a live call, do I get to engage or am I automatically muted? Do I get to ask questions?
Yes.
Am I allowed to? Like how do I just show up and I have to like I can't like essentially can I raise my hand or
It's
not?
so I'm doing a course right now on how to launch a course. And it is from a very well-known educator, and it
Mhm.
is maddening that I have to sit in a webinar and try to keep up with the chat.
Oh,
There
geez,
is
yeah.
there's no live feature where I can actually say anything because everybody's muted. I can't see who's in the room. I know it's live because the moderator is answering my questions, but again, it's dehumanizing. It is not, it is, and again, this goes back to how do you learn? What do you want? How are you going to thrive in an education space? But I know, like, my heart is community, and it's very empty.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to know exactly what you're saying. What is that going to look like for you?
Yeah, yeah. And so being specific and like, can I raise my hand and how do I get my questions asked? And so here's one that's like really like, I'll just share this because one of my coaching students told me this and I about like fell out of my seat when she told me. So she took a program where content was pre-recorded and there was office hours, or Q&A, like office hours, right? And they were scheduled and they did have good participation because this was how you got to like implement. It was a rolling enrollment. That's another thing to also ask a question is like, is everybody starting at the same point, or are people, is it like rolling and people are coming in at any different, like any given point, right? So some person's on week 8 and the other person's on week 1, right? Because what you have to realize is that you're going to get different questions. Somebody who's on week 8 is going to be asking questions that are different than someone else in week 1, right? So,
That
but
you don't have the momentum in a system like that, because when you're all, it's like a sorority, you're all together and it's like this snowball effect of momentum, and it's getting
yep,
bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're cheering for each other. And when you're all coming in at different points, there again, I keep going back to community. There is not this like we are all in the trenches together. That's
yeah,
completely lost.
yeah, and like having a cohort is basically what we're
Right.
saying. Is there a cohort? And so in this particular, because like I just think to myself, well, if 6 people joined and are now all on week 8, but I was the only person who joined at the current and I'm on week 1. Well, now I don't have any buddies.
Right.
Like, who's going to be in here with me to, like, pick me up when I'm feeling down because no one can relate to me. And the girls on week 8, sometimes the people who are really advanced, there are people who are really advanced who aren't willing to, reach down because they're
Right.
like, they're spread too, whatever. There's so many different, there are, I'm not saying that like that, there's tons of people who do want to help the the younger ones like move up, right? But there's are some that don't, and to have that expectation is, so like, what does that look like? The cohort process. But so what this person told me in this is that there were office hours, but they were scheduled at 7 a.m. I believe Pacific, I could be wrong, but a completely different time zone. It was a 3-hour time change at 7 a.m., which made it at like 4 a.m. her time.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
And she was like, I could never participate. I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. Like, okay, now I can understand, like, if you're in another country and
Right.
90% of the people that are in this program are in the United States and they're in Eastern to Central time and you're on the opposite side of the world,
Right.
that's a little different. So you want to be aware of that too. But, and I always, when people are not in the same time zone, I really try to stress to them that, like, is this going to work?
Right.
Because, I don't want you to not feel like you got something out of this because you couldn't make the time work. So, yeah, but here's the other part that was like wild to me. Like, just literally, like, my eyeballs pop out of my face when I say this. Is, so it was at 4 a.m. her time. It was for 1 hour. You had to submit your questions. Everyone was muted. No one was allowed to, like, you didn't have the option to turn your microphone on. It just was locked. It wasn't even an option. And she would be on for 1 hour, and it was a hard stop at 8 a.m. her time. And if she didn't finish answering questions, oh well,
Yep.
oh well, that was the hour. And so, And what she told me was that she was like, I really felt like she would pick and choose the questions that were the easiest ones for her to
Right.
answer. And, so she's like, I kind of started to link up with people who I started to recognize faces on the Zoom. And we started to realize that we were asking like very similar questions, but no one was getting the answers. And they would just get, like cut off. And, just be like 8 a.m. and she'd be like, click, see you guys next week. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? I cannot imagine. So, really asking yourself, like, okay, do I have connection to the coach? Yes or no? And what does that actual connection look like? And if it's maybe it's not directly with the coach, is it with a co-coach? How often is it? How long is it? Are there questions that are off limits? Um, and so just making sure that you're setting yourself up for success and you're not going to be disappointed at the end of it. So,
Absolutely. And I
um,
there's one other point, and it was actually in our talk today. They talked about staying close to the action, and I think that again is what makes you so valuable as a coach. You still run a seven-figure photography business. You are still in the industry. You see the challenges that we're facing with the recession. You have had to pivot, and you can speak to that because you are still in it with us, versus somebody that's just trying to teach something that they no longer are doing. They have no real pulse on what's actually going on in the industry currently. And that is something that not only do you need to ask a potential educator, but you need to see a proven track record that they are still successful at the current time in the industry that they're trying to coach you on.
yep, 100%. Because, like, of course, you're going to have coaches, like, for example, I took a program. I remember I was in a program where all these, like, disgruntled people were, but some people were like, do you realize that she hasn't even photographed a wedding in over 5 years? And I looked on Google, and the last Google review was, from 2012. And like, you can tell that none of these are actually real weddings. There's no people at these. There's not like, or it's really these like elopement type scenarios where like you can't even tell if they're real.
Right.
And I kind of like just paused everybody and I was like, what does this matter? This isn't what she's teaching us. She's not teaching us about how to book weddings. She's teaching us about how to build a course. That's kind of irrelevant. I mean, does it maybe speak a little bit to where she's at currently and how much context she can give you in the current circumstances of the market if you ask her a question
Right.
related to those things? But, if you're going to try to learn how to build a client experience, is that person still providing a client experience? Like, how far removed are they from it? Or like, if it like kind of amazes me that it seems like such a like duh like thing um, to like process and think about, but I do feel that there's a lot of educators who are teaching on things that they are clearly not doing.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this up, but I want to like while we're on that topic, I want to share a couple of ways that you can do some due diligence, okay? And I'm going to share this from this group that I was in who went and looked all this stuff up. Go look at their Google reviews. They may not have Google reviews necessarily as a coach, but if you're learning something related to their business, when was their last Google review from a client? If you're going to go learn how to build a client experience, when was the last time a client wrote about a review about them? Um, uh, Another way is to go look at Instagram and look to see, are other accounts that are not clearly like B2B, business to business, but like business to client, are they tagging them? Like, are you seeing people who are showing social proof of whatever it is that you're wanting to learn from this person? Um, the next thing, and feel free to chime in, because I'm sure there's like several of them, is to actually go ask the people who have testimonials on their page.
Right.
Go ask. I hired a coach, and I actually did this due diligence, and I decided I actually messaged three people who were on her sales page, and nobody responded back to me. And I still decided to move forward with her because I really felt called to work with her, and I think it ended up being fine because she was a great coach. It was the girl that I was like butting heads with a little bit, but um, can you actually like, are these people real? And I know that that sounds so
No,
dumb.
it's
Like,
the truth though.
yeah, my light keeps timing off. They're like, my light's like, it's like when you're if you're watching, if you're not watching this and you're only listening, I'm sitting in front of a mirror that has like light bulbs and it's on a timer.
Oh
And I
my
feel like it's like when you're on stage and they start playing the music. It's like, this is your
You
sign,
remind
Brittany.
me of
Stop
my
talking.
13-year-old. She's got like the whole mirror with like the, the bulb, like the vanity. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. For all those who are watching. There it is.
yes, that's
Okay.
exactly what she has. That's hilarious. Oh my God.
Okay, so but
Your skincare routine.
yeah, so just like go do your due diligence. And I think it's like don't expect every person to respond to you, but like message like three or four of them and just be like, "Hey, what was your experience?" Like, and also realize that like not everyone's gonna have the best experience. You
Right.
know, like if you go ask four or five people, you would like for the majority of those people to say positive things, right? Because like you and I both know, like we have coached people in LTL who didn't do the work, who didn't show up on calls, you know, and like if you ask them, are they going to tell you like, did LTL change my life? You know, or whatever, like they might ask you, or you might ask them questions, but like hopefully people like that will be forthcoming and say,
Right.
I didn't really show up, I really didn't do the work, like really can't speak to it, or whatever. But hopefully people will be forthcoming if they didn't get the results because they didn't do the work. But the overall majority of people should be able to say positive things, right? I looked at a program I really want to take, and I'm not in the right season to do it right now. But I went and I looked her up all over the internet. And I just like I went through Reddit and I just like read reviews. I found her on the Better Business Bureau. Um, and so and I found that the overarching reviews, like she had like a 90% happiness rate. And there was one common thing that I saw throughout all the negativity, and it was people who got cold feet and decided they didn't want to spend the money, got
Right.
buyer's remorse, or it was people who didn't do the work and expected her to give them their money back.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. And so I was like, I feel really confident. I like really dug on this person because I'm like, I think too, like you kind of start to reach, and I feel like why I'm sharing this today is because I've done so much education and I've realized I've wasted time. And now that and you get it, you have five kids. Like now that I have four kids and I have several employees and we have all of the movement in our studio, like my time is so precious now. And so if I'm going to go do a course, like you bet your bottom dollar it's going to be worth my damn time. And I'm going to be in that seat and I'm going to show up and I'm going to listen and I'm going to do the work because otherwise I'm not going to do it because I already know like it's either 100% fit or I'm out.
Right.
So, do you have any other like reverse hacking on like that you can share?
I know when I did LTL, not only did I mean, I literally looked at all of your alumni. I looked at all of their websites. I looked at their social media. I DM them. I will never forget. Um, and I think this is why finding a good educator that's going to actually walk alongside you is so important. um, when I talked to one of your alumni before I did the program, she was like, I could send you all of my pricing. I could send you my entire investment guide. I could explain to you, what needs to change in your pricing. She's like, and it would be like me giving you the ingredients to a recipe. But until you take the program, you will not have, you will not have the step by step instructions. Therefore, your product, your dessert, will not come out correctly.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the hallmark of, you know, something worth investing in, is that it's not just these ingredients that you plug and play and get a certain result. It's the process, it's the strategy um,
Hmm.
behind behind the program, and that is why you need somebody to walk with you to help you actually implement
Hmm.
what you're
Yeah.
doing. And
Yeah.
that's the key. I mean, so many programs out there, there is just, and I mean, I've even suggested this to you as far as an implementation coach. There just are so many educators that have this content, but there is no implementation. And you're just doing the people that you're coaching such a disservice, because, you know, it's never going to move the needle on their business if they
Yeah.
never implement what you're trying to teach them. And that's kind of where, I think you talked about just like ethically and having this heart of service. Are you just out to make money, or are you
Hmm.
really out to change people's lives? And you talk about that. I know you talked about that on your last podcast with Zach. Like, you've just heard so many testimonials. You've heard from husbands, you've heard from other photographers, just how LTL has completely changed the trajectory of their family and their
Hmm.
life. And isn't that what we all want if we're going to coach somebody or mentor somebody? Is you want transformation.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
that's what
Okay,
it's all
well, we're going to wrap this episode, but um, first of all, I'm going to link in the show notes my PDF guide on how to find the right educator for you, and the right program for you. It has a lot of what we're sharing here today, and more just like action steps of like what you can do, and like so you don't have to listen to this whole podcast again or take notes. It's all written in there with some things that you can. Look for as you're making the investment. But I hope that this part one episode has helped you really shed light on what it is that you're going to invest in, the differences between education and, of course, just like being more aware of what you're stepping forward in as you go into 2026. So come back for part two. This is going to be so good. Thanks, Stephanie, for joining me.
Thank you, Brittany.